You may have noticed in the last few videos that my topics have used video game examples, and in this video I wanted to show you what I've been working on over the last few months. We've come a long way and still have a long road ahead. Hi everyone, my name's Rob from RobOps, and today we're talking about a side project I've been working on over the past few months. This will be a bit of a departure from my typical videos because it's something I wanted to share from the early stages as a way to get feedback and really just to build in public. So with that said, I've been building a browser-based MMO, otherwise known as a massive multiplayer online role-playing game. The game is heavily inspired by Old School RuneScape, one of my favorite games of all time. The game is built using Godot as the client engine and Python as the game server. Game state and authentication is handled by AWS, and I plan on hosting the game at some point in July, but for now, we're just doing things locally. In this video, I want to show what's been built so far and what the plan is for the future. So without further ado, let's jump into the game. So hopping over to my local host here, I'm going to just sign in with one of the accounts that I have set up, and we are going to launch into the game. And so as you can see, we've warped into the game here, and here's Rob. He's our character, and you can see we have another player over here. We have kind of our chat interface. We have an inventory with items that we can equip. We have like an axe, and we have a sword here. If we go to our stats, we can see we have some skills. We have like wood cutting. We have something called precision, strength, coordination, mining, fishing. We have kind of your character summary. So we have total level, quests completed, playtime. You have your equipment. So you can see we have something equipped here, and we can click to unequip it. And then you have your quests. And obviously, these are just kind of placeholders, but if you click, you can get this download of like what the quest is and who you need to speak with. And then you have some settings here. And, of course, it's quite unoptimized, but you can see blocking radius overlay or like tile highlights, which is like if you turn this off, you don't see where you walk anymore. But as you can see, we have kind of how we build the world, which we'll get into in a little bit. We have this capability to run. And if we walk through this island here, we can notice that we actually like procedurally, well, not procedurally, but we generate the chunks of the world as the player walks. And so here we have some harvestable objects, which, is a tree, which we can chop. And if we try to chop it, it'll say you need an axe. But luckily for us, we do have an axe. And so if you try to chop it, you can see you'll chop and you will accumulate some experience along with an oak log. And so this tree will respawn, and we can continue to chop these trees. And the island that we're on is kind of the starting area for the characters, and you can see like there's water here that we obviously can't walk on. And so as we walk over here, we have kind of the campsite, and we have some NPCs. And so we have Mira, which is a female NPC we can talk to, and we have a bit of a dialogue here. And then we have our bank chest. So if you go over here, you can see we have a few things in our bank chest, and you can deposit and you can withdraw. Take out all of these items or rocks. And then we have an NPC named Aldrich. And if you remember, Aldrich is, the person who just gives you this quest. So you can tell me about a goblin problem. You can see quest updated. And so now, instead of talking to Aldrich, we have a task to kill 10 goblins in the forest. And so goblins aren't implemented yet, so this is obviously a bit of a moot point, but you can see if we go to our quest log here, Goblin Menace has started. So as you go, we also have like a concept of elevation in the world, so we can apply elevation, and we have a zombie over here. And so if we go over here, we can engage in some combat. And as you can see, very similar to the Old School RuneScape look and feel, we're able to attack enemies. and we're able to deal damage. And so the damage is based on, you know, your levels and your items that you have equipped. And so you can obviously disengage and you'll be chased a little bit. And I think the final kind of thing I want to show is like if I open another tab and I log in, they will load into the world with us. And as you see, somebody just popped in here and I can see another player, which is just me in another tab, but I can say hello. And so as you can see, you know, you can kind of have dialogue between characters. You know, they're made from the same model, but the clothes are different. So these are the features that we have so far. I do want to get into some specifics around how we built this in kind of like a scalable way. So if we hop over to this tab, this is our kind of world editor. And this is the interface that we use to build our overall world. And so if we zoom in here, we can see that there's like a bunch of controls on top. We have like the dungeon map, which is here, and we have the overworld. And we have kind of this terrain editor. And so this is how we define the elevations on the map. And so 1 is effectively just a base level, 3, 5, and then all the way to 9, which is like an elevated piece. And so here I can just kind of like draw an elevated piece in just to show what it would look like. We have our water, we have our coastline, which we can kind of like expand here. And then we have various like rock and other textures for the ground. And so this is the interface that we use to kind of build the map itself. And as you can see, kind of like it is a small map on a fairly large 256 by 256 grid. And then something else we can also do is add rocks and other kind of like interactable objects. So we have like this dungeon entrance, we have an oak trees, we have regular trees. And so here I'm gonna add a tree on our elevated piece of land. And we also have this concept of adding NPCs. And so if I click on this NPC here, we can see the NPCs that we did add. We have Aldrich and we have Mira. And so they are 2 NPCs that we can spawn, and then we can set their dialogue ID, which we can kind of correspondingly hook up in the JSON configuration. And we can also set their wander radius. And so Aldrich actually spawned on top of the fire, so I want to move him slightly. And Mira is kind of placed in a strange place, but effectively we can go here and we can just click save, and that's going to save Aldrich's position. And then similarly, we're just going to leave Mira, but you get the point. We can kind of like put NPCs where we need them to be. And then on the enemy side, we notice that we had that zombie. See that we have this zombie that's placed kind of like at the top of the hill here, and we saw them wandering. And so, you know, we can place, we have a roam radius, and we can make multiple zombies if we wanted within the roam radius. And so this is the basis for how we would set up the world at a macro scale. And then what I'll show you kind of next is how we end up modeling that world using inside the Godot editor. And so before we go into the Godot editor, I just want to show you how like the changes that we made here would be reflected in game. So here I can go save and rebuild. And what that's going to do is going to just save the state. It's going to cut up the chunks of the map. And then I'll go back and I'm going to restart our server. So it's going to pick up the new chunks. And then if I go back to our game, we're going to be able to see those changes reflected when we log in. So here I'm going to log out. I'm going to just refresh here, and then I'm going to log in again. And hopefully we should see like a raised piece of, yeah. So here we can see we have like this raised piece of terrain with like an oak tree at the top of it. But for the purpose of the example, just to show like how that works. And then of course, like if we wanted to just erase that, we could just draw over it, and then we could just erase that oak tree, save and rebuild, and then it would be reflected in our game once the server restarts. And so next we're gonna hop over to the Godot editor. And here in the editor, we are in our main scene, or kind of like what we were walking around and doing. And so as you can see here, we have like the rocks and the fire pit, and we have kind of like the bush line over here. And so basically we have a script that will import the world map into our Godot editor, as you can see. And it will also highlight certain areas. Like as you can see here, are the trees that we've placed in our world editor are placed on the map here in orange. And so in this view, we're able to, or at least our objective here is to enrich the scene with assets. And so I have the Stinty library for these like low poly like assets, or like stones and bushes and fire pits. But what I want to show here is the process for how we kind of enrich our scene. And so we have this this prop placer scene, and we basically put as the props that we want to populate on the map within the scene. And so down here we have our asset library, and we'll have something like foliage, maybe not foliage, maybe props. And so here you can see we have like beds and forges, and this is just part of the library that I purchased. But for what we're trying to do, maybe we want like a rock. So we can just like type like rock. And so here in environment, we have like a rock chunk. And so what I would do here is take this GLB and place it in the scene. And as you can see, it's just a rock. But what I can do now is I can rotate it, I can scale it, make it a big rock. And what I'm gonna do is actually try to put it right at the crossroad of our scene. So as you can see, we would just place this rock here, and we would then make sure that it's just part of this prop set. And that's how we would like build this scene. And so here in this like tutorial island kind of style, we're gonna have like this meeting point here, and we're gonna have like a bit of like an animal pen over here, and we're gonna have kind of like our trees in which you can harvest. And then we'll have some sort of like dungeon entrance over here. But for the purposes of just showing you how this works, we're gonna place this rock, and then we're gonna show how it's reflected when we run the game. And so if we hop back over to our game screen here, and we log in, we should see the rock that we just placed in the scene in game. So turn around, and there is our rock. So you can see we can currently like walk through it, but we also are able to kind of like set walk radiuses. So you'll see here, if I highlight the blocking radius here, we can see how these rocks are blocking the character, so the character will kind of move around them. Similarly, like with this fence over here, obviously like we don't want the player to be able to move through the fence, so we can set this radius, which will allow the player to navigate with those constraints in mind. So probably the last thing I want to talk about is something that I've been learning a lot as well, which is the character modeling. And so for the characters, we've been trying to develop, and I might actually just do a full video on how we've kind of done this, but really I'm not a 3D artist by any means. The models that we use need to be, cut in a certain way, because you need to be able to apply the armors and things like that. And so this is our female character model, and as you can see, kind of like they're cut up into various parts, because when we apply like armors and equipment, you effectively you know, like replace the leg with that piece of equipment, and that's how we get kind of like our equipment made. And so here we have an armature, and if we go to like the default, we can see like we have a few animations, and these are pulled straight from like MMO. So you'll notice, like, you know, in the game, this is how they were attacking. And we can do, we also have something very similar for our male model. And so here is like our male model, and we have the armature for the male model. And similarly, like we have this like chop animation that we made ourselves, which is very obviously made by ourselves. And then we have like the run animation. And so this has been a pretty big journey, learning how to do this and figuring out how to do it in a scalable way. Because obviously it's just me doing this, but it's been really interesting to learn how to like make this look good and how to you know, build these models from scratch. So that's something also that I've been kind of working on. So yeah, I think that's kind of all I wanted to share. It's more of just kind of like a status update on where things are at with the game. It's been so fun to work on, and that's probably why I haven't been working on YouTube videos as frequently. This has been taking up a lot of my very limited spare time, but it's something that has been really fun for me to do. It's a really good mix of you know, writing code, but then also something that like I've been very passionate about in terms of you know, recreating something that was like so special to me when I was a kid. And so if you are interested in like what the plan is and like, you know, maybe what we're going to be doing or what I'm going to be doing next, I'm going to link my Discord in the description if you are interested in or have ideas about how you want you think the game should grow, or any feedback. I would be really interested. I am still going to be creating videos about technology tutorials, but I will also start a series for this devlog type video. It started off quite crude, and every week it's getting a little bit better. And I do want to get it into a space where people can actually get their fingers on it and try it. So that's something that we're going to be working towards for probably next month. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this different style of video. If you did, feel free to drop a comment. And if you're interested in kind of like how this is going to grow, subscribe and you'll be kind of plugged into what we're doing here. So thanks, and I hope you have a great week.